Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I have got 3 cards to share with you using the Spellbinders February Small Die Kit of the Month. And I'm going to start off with a long card here. So I've taken some Nina cardstock and I'm just going to score that down the middle at 4 1/4. And then I'm going to fold that and I will trim it at 8 1/2 inches. So you'll see I do have a little extra piece there. Save that. I'm going to use that to make my next card in the set. I've also taken some Stamp Market cherry cardstock and I've trimmed that to 4 by 8 1/4. I'm going to use this as the front panel to my card. And I've grabbed a Stamp Market stamp set, which is called Simply Said. It has those 4 really cute sentiments on it. I love the font that they've used for these. And I'm going to be using these for all 3 of my cards today as well. So I'm stamping that out here using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And then I lost a little bit of footage, but I'm just giving you a look. I took the die and I went ahead and lined that up. I used my ruler to make sure that I had it nice and centered. And then I took a journaling pen and I just ran that along all of the inside lines of the die to create this sort of half circle arrow shape. I wanted to have this pointing up and down towards my sentiment. And then I wanted to add some rainbow here. So I had actually thought about maybe inlaying this, but because the way the circles, because it was a circle and there were dots underneath it, I wasn't able to do any partial die cutting where I could get the full arrows in. I will do some partial die cutting for you with the next card, so you'll see how to do that. But I'm just using these lines here, adding a little bit of art glitter glue and placing down my rainbow pieces that I have trimmed out. And yes, I am crazy and I did trim out this little die 3 times from each of these rainbow colors in order to get all of the pieces that I needed. But I'm so happy with the way this turned out. It was worth all the time that it took. So I have gone ahead here and popped up my panel with some Scotch foam tape. I'm going to pull away the backing and I'll place this down on top of my card base. For the inside, I've trimmed a Nina panel to 3 1/2 by 7 3/4, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment. Thank you, again using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. I'll add some ATG to the back and place that on the inside of my card base. Finally, I wanted to give a little bit more of an accent to all of those little die cut pieces, so I pulled out my glossy accents and I'm just going to run a line of that across all of these little arrow pieces. And that will complete card number 1. So here for card number 2, I am using that leftover piece that I had trimmed off of my first card. The measurements for that are 2 1/2 by 4 1/4. I've taken some blush cardstock and trimmed a panel from that to 2 3/8 by 4 1/8. I've then taken the die that has this half circle stripe that looks like a rainbow, and I've lined that up along the bottom, just getting that as centered as best as I can and making sure that the bottom is nice and even. Now you'll see that my paper slightly overlaps there where I have the dots on the other half of that circle. So you'll see I'm very carefully taking the edge of my plate and lining that up and making sure that I'm only covering the portion of that die that I want to cut out with the plate. So I'm going to run that through, and here you'll see that because I wasn't covering the portion that had the dots on it with my cutting plate, it did not cut that out. So you just have to be extra careful. This was pretty tedious because it was such a small area in between the two, but if you line it up properly, you are able to make it work. So I have, of course, taken this to my Misty, and I'm stamping out my sentiment here for you, again using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And now I'm going to go ahead and inlay my rainbow with all of the different colors. So I should let you know all of this cardstock is from Stamp Market, and the colors are Cherry, Blush, Tropic, Emerald, Melon, Citrine, Bubble, Leafy, and Party. And I have taken some Post-it tape, placed that behind the opening of my rainbow, and I'm going to take all of these little slices of colors here and just press those into the portion that's been trimmed out. Just using the back of my bone folder there to make sure that they're in there nice and tight. I'm going to go ahead here and add some foam tape to the back just to pop up that panel. I'll peel away the backing and place that down on my card base. Just making sure I've got that nice and lined up there. And that's going to complete card number 2. Really sweet and simple, but I think probably actually my favorite from this pack of 3. So here for card number 3, I'm sorry, I have again lost a little bit of footage here, but what I did to create this panel was take some of the Tropic cardstock and I've trimmed that down to 4x5 1/4. I then took the 3 background circles with the stripes and the dots and just laid those out on my panel just sort of randomly, and then I ran that through my die cutting machine. So that's how I got the panel that we're working with now. And then I'm again going to grab my thank you sentiment and stamp that out using my intense black ink. I then decided I wanted to do a little bit more of that inlay technique. So I'm again going to grab some Post-it tape, place that behind just one of my circles here, and then I'm going to pull from all of my extras from my first card, and I'll just create a repeating stripe here. Again, just pressing those into place and being very careful as I press that down, since some of those ran off the edge there, to make sure that I wasn't tearing anything. That is pretty fragile with those 2 pieces there that are cut off the edge. Once I'm happy with that, I will make sure that's pressed nicely into place. Then I'll go ahead and trim off my excess, and I have a little bit of that tape peeking out behind some of those stars there, so I'll just trim that to make sure that I'm only seeing what I want to be seeing. And I'm going to add another little extra piece there just to make sure that those inlays stay in there nice and tight. I'll add some ATG to the solid portions of the back of this panel. And then I'm going to finish up under my cutouts with a few dots of some art glitter glue. I'm going to go ahead and place that here on the top of my card base. This card base is made from emerald cardstock. And then finally, I've got a piece of Nina trimmed to 4x5 1/4. And I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "You're the best." I'll add some ATG to the back of my panel and go ahead and place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 3. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I used. Don't forget to leave me a comment below so you can be entered in this week's March Madness giveaway. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.